Professional cyclists spend thousands of hours on their bikes each and every year, so a correctly fitting bike is absolutely essential. So today I'm going to go and ask some of the pros whether or not they've had a bike fit, if they've stuck to the recommendations, and also some more in-depth answers too. I'm looking forward to this one because I think they're going to have a lot to say. Come on. Have you ever had a bike fit?
I have.
And did you stick to it?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to go to someone who you believe in, though. Who you trust and believe in their theory. So if you just ring someone up and go, oh, I want a bike fit.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're not a professional cyclist, you'd be willing to try it. But riding the amount of Ks we do, if you just put your hands in someone else's theories that you don't really know, and you're doing the amount of Ks we do, it's hard to convince yourself to stick with any changes that they make. So you really need to get to know the person who's going to fit you and understand their theories and how they come about positioning you, so you can understand when they're making an adjustment, why they're making it, and from what information they're using to make that adjustment. Out
of interest, was yours purely done on visuals, or was it like electronic with lasers and all the pads and everything?
Lasers and the sensor stickers are all the way to go now. The latest technology, which I've been using a lot, is pressure pads. So we put pressure pads inside the shoes and on the saddle. Yeah. And so from those pressure sensors, they can get information of when you're pushing on in your inner sole, if you're pushing in the center of the shoe, or if the cleat's too far forward or back. And so they can centralize the cleat, not necessarily in the center of the shoe, but in the center of where you're pushing. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah. Okay, right. So you did stick to the bike fit changes. Were they big changes or not? That's what I'm really interested in.
No, I haven't changed my position very much over the last nearly 10 years. It's all within small margins.
A couple of millimeters.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a bike fit?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, on both bikes?
Both bikes, yes.
Yeah. Did you stick to the recommendations?
Over years it changed slightly, but it was very minimal changes, to be honest. It was a professional bike kit from when I was a little bit younger, and I haven't grown, so when the results come with that bike fit, why change?
Yeah. What sort of changes were they?
The TT bike, the only thing I really have changed since 2012 was my arms coming up instead of flat. Other than that, nothing.
Yeah. And do you normally have a bike fit then at the start of each season, or not, just to make sure? No.
No. Just we scan each bike, and we make sure it's the same as last year. If I change teams, it's the same as my last year's bike, and that's it. Try to have minimal changes. 1 millimeter or nothing is ideal.
I'm here with Rolf Aldag, the head of performance at Team Dimension Data, and well, we go back a little bit, don't we? Probably too long, but you can't seem to shake me off actually. I've got to ask you, do all of your riders undergo bike fits?
Yes, they do, in different ways. Of course, there's one of all, there's like road bike and TT bike that we really have to divide. And yes, they do, and of course, like bike fitting is a lot a mental thing. Because you have to believe in it. Because cycling always hurts, and you want to put that pain in the category like that's something positive, and not that's something because I sit wrongly on my bike.
Yeah. Now, years ago when we started to cycle, our bike fits were done by probably the mechanic of the team, or a local ex-pro or something like that. Who does your bike fits now, or does it vary?
It's much more scientific that it was in the past. You're 100% right. I mean, the head mechanic of Team Telecom basically sent me off to my auto room when I came down to him to say, look, the new handlebar shape does not work for me. Can I go back to the old? His only comment was like, doesn't work for you? Then you have to stop. So that was the end of the story. 30,
no option to go back.
About 30 years ago. Now, of course, you try to find solution. And in bike fitting, you have a lot of people involved. So that's a physiotherapist, because you need to understand the flexibility of the body, the limitations of the body. And the mechanic is still a big part of it, because ultimately it has to be, you know, physically doable, or people figure out. And then we still have the UCI rules. It also became more and more tight, how far you can sit back and how long it can be and stuff like that. So it's a pretty complex thing. There are a lot of experts out there, and we keep it a little bit flexible, so we don't force it in general on them, especially on the road bike. On the TT bike, it's more obvious. It's more number related, that you go to a track, you have them riding around. You go to the wind tunnel, you have them sitting on there, and then you figure out what is the best, and then you still have to make it rideable for them. So biomechanics still play a big role.
And do you find most riders stick to the changes that are made, or I guess it is really tough, isn't it? Like you've already said, it's a very big mental thing, and some riders, they're convinced that they're never comfortable, I think, on a bike. You know, all I've got to do is look around here this morning, and the number of riders who are still adjusting their saddle height, their cleats, things like that. I guess part of your job as well is probably just to reassure them, you know, that things are okay. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, true. Give them a little bit of confidence on, you know, this is done. You don't have to play around with it. But for some, it's just like clicking a box. So in the morning, they take an Allen key and they do open the screw and tighten it, and that's it. We just have to make sure that they keep within the right torque range and everything, that they don't mess up the bike. But at the end of the day, if somebody sits 80 centimeter high, center to top of the saddle, you know, and he lowers the saddle by a millimeter, that's, tried to calculate yesterday, you know, 0.12%, 0.12%. So it's not super relevant. No. Do you get a different feeling? Of course. Just imagine we have a transfer in the car to the start of the race, 140 kilometer, and you know you have a leg span all the time. Of course, you feel, first time you get on a bike, you feel too high, because you can't stretch your legs anymore. So it's you know, it's a natural thing. You just can't overrate it, and you know, get out, be kind of confident in what you do, and that's the best.
Cool. Thank you very much. Right, Adam, I've got to ask, have you ever had a bike fit?
I've had many bike fits over the years. I think we all have. Yeah, it's very subjective. I've actually done a bike fit course. So I wanted to know more about it, because every bike fit's done on, you know, opinion on the bike fitter. So
yeah. Now, how's was yours done? Forget my words out. Was it done, you know, motion sensors and lasers, or was it purely just on, like, that looks good?
Well,
because, you know, years ago, that's how a lot of bike fits were done.
True. The traditional way of bike fit was, you know, you run a spindle just over your kneecap, make sure it goes through the ball of your foot, through the pedal axle. And it's a bit different now. You know, they have pressure sensors in your foot, and the obvious idea is to maximise the amount of the force over time plots. So that's one thing. I use a Limo device a lot, which measures your leg angles, your foot angles and everything. In training camp, we use a lot of riders using that. We did a lot of tests with, because it also measures your pelvic rock, so we did a lot of tests with riders at training camp, you know, what seat is better for them, and also to maximise your leg angle range to get the most amount of power, and the Limo device does that very well. Yeah,
and then with the feedback you get from that, you could possibly change your position slightly to suit. Is that something which riders have been doing?
Oh, for sure. Like, for example, if I jump on my spare bike, I don't even need to look at the position, and I can just see the data from that my legs aren't going as high up and down as possible as in my previous race bike. So, and then I can check and I can see that my seat is actually lower. So yeah, you can use it.
And is it something you're subconsciously thinking about then when you're riding as well, trying to adjust, you know, your riding style almost when you start to tire?
Yeah, well, the strange thing is when you do a bike fit, you do it in, you know, in controlled environment. You do it in a lab, and you're sitting very, very well seated on the seat. Where in a race, you move far more forwards, and when you do move far more forwards, you're actually sitting close to the bottom bracket. So the distance between your seating position from moving more forwards and bottom bracket is shorter. So your leg angle actually changes when you come more forward. So with the Limo, it's pretty good like this, because then you can actually set up your position more in race mode, and then, you know, you can go out in the real environment, and you can test on the climbs and everything. Because what other people forget too is when you ride uphill, your bike changes, and that also changes your everything. So it's also comparison to the center of gravity. It's a German company. They do a lot of their bike fits based on center of gravity, because when you with their mountain bikers, for example, they set them up mostly because they want the max amount of power riding uphill.
Right. Okay. Because it's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes, you know, when you start climbing, you end up falling back on the saddle just to try and get that extra leverage.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't it? Yeah. Have you ever had some adjustments made then after a bike fit and you thought, I just can't ride like this? Or do you give it quite a bit of time?
Oh, for sure. Because, you know, going back to what I said, a bike fit's, you usually have a company that has their theories, but it's really up to the bike fitter and how he wants you to set up on the bike. And that's his theory, but, you know, a lot of times you just can't ride it.
Yeah. Yeah, you need, I think you're right, you need someone who understands a cyclist and their physiology. I mean, you guys, World Tour riders, are totally different to, you know, your average cyclist, because you're riding quite a bit more, aren't you? So so you can, you know, possibly ride in a more extreme position and also ultimately suffer the pain a lot more as well.
Exactly. Well, you know, there's a balance. You know, if you're in a good position and if it's not so comfortable, if you get the power out of it and you can sustain that power for 6 hours, okay, you want the power gains if you can handle the pain.
Yeah. Now, you've done a bike fitting course. Are you tempted to fit up any of your teammates or not?
Well, I've had them on the Limo device and they've changed their position in training camp based on that. But, you know, I give some advice. It's a touchy subject, you know. Everyone's very individual. So I just pass on a few words. That's enough. I don't like to play around with other people too much.
No, you might not be that popular if you do too much.
There we are, bike fitting as told by the professionals. Let me know though, have you had a bike fit done? Was it done the old-fashioned way, just thinking, well, that looks about right, or were you using motion sensors and lasers and all the latest tech? Remember to like and share this video with your friends too. Give it a big old thumbs up down there, and why not check out the GCN shop at shop.globalcyclingnetwork.com. Whole heap of goodies for you to check out, including short sleeve t-shirts, which is very important here in the UAE. And now for 2 more great videos, how about clicking just down here and just down here.